My name is Brianna Keaton, and I'm 34 now. But if you asked my stepmother, Celeste, who I was, she would have told you I was a typo, a smudge in the family portrait, the thing you try to crop out before you send the Christmas cards. She spent 20 years teaching me that lesson, softly at first, like training a dog not to jump on the couch, then louder, sharper, until it became the background music of my childhood. The mistake, she'd say, not always with words. Sometimes it was a sigh when I walked into the room. Sometimes it was the way she'd hand my brothers their plates first, hot food steaming, and then slide mine down the counter like she was pushing a bill across a table. When I was 12, she convinced my dad to send me to boarding school. She'll thrive with structure, Celeste said, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. She needs discipline, routine. What she meant was, she'll thrive without her here. Dad, Graham Keaton, didn't look at me when they told me. He looked at the paperwork. He looked at Celeste's hand resting on his arm like a claim. He looked everywhere except my face. I remember the suitcase more than anything. The zipper snagging, the sound of it fighting me, like even the fabric knew it was wrong. I remember standing in my bedroom, the one Celeste redecorated into a guest room the summer after I left, thinking, so this is how you erase someone. Boarding school wasn't a coming-of-age story. It was cold hallways and fluorescent lights and the smell of industrial detergent. It was being the scholarship kid, even though my father was rich. It was eating dinner while everyone else got picked up for long weekends. And holidays? Holidays were worse. My brothers, Trevor and Dylan, posted Instagram stories of ski trips, matching pajamas, fireplaces that looked like movie sets. I watched those stories in an empty dorm, the heat turned down because maintenance said it saves money. Dad would call on Christmas morning, always rushed, always with Celeste's voice in the background, reminding him about brunch reservations, the ham, the guests, the charity gala they couldn't miss. Love you, Brie, he'd say, and it always sounded like a line he was reading off a cue card. In college, I worked 3 jobs, barista at dawn, tutoring at noon, hostess at night, because Dad's checks came with strings tied so tight they cut into skin. Celeste thinks it's important you learn responsibility, Dad would tell me, like it was parenting and not punishment. Meanwhile, my brother's monthly allowances exceeded what I made in a year. Dylan dropped out twice. Dad bought him a condo downtown like it was a consolation prize. Trevor got seed money for his business, an amount Dad described as not that much, even though it could have paid off my loans 10 times over. I graduated with honors and $47,000 in debt. Celeste sent a bouquet with a card that said, "So proud you managed it," like I'd been a stray cat that learned tricks. The irony, no, the cruelty, was that I looked exactly like my father. Same dark eyes, same crooked smile, same stubborn jawline. Trevor and Dylan took after Celeste, blonde, angular, expensive looking. But Celeste spent 2 decades acting like I was the outsider, as if DNA didn't matter when she controlled the narrative. Dad died suddenly at 68, a heart attack during his morning run. That's what they told me. I flew in for the funeral and sat in the back row like a distant coworker. Celeste wore head-to-toe black and diamond earrings that glittered every time she dabbed her eyes, as if grief was another accessory. Trevor and Dylan flanked her like bodyguards. No one hugged me. No one asked how I was getting through it. Celeste didn't speak to me at all, not even to pretend. That kind of silence is its own message. You're not family. 3 days later, the lawyer called. "We need you at the reading of the will," he said, voice careful, almost apologetic. "It's important you're there." I assumed I was getting something small, Dad's old record collection, his watch, a token, something that wouldn't upset Celeste. The conference room was cold enough to keep secrets frozen. Celeste sat at the head of the table, posture perfect, mascara intact. Trevor and Dylan scrolled their phones, bored in the way people get when they already believe they've won. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This is somewhat unusual," he began. I felt my pulse trip. Not fear exactly, more like my body recognizing a cliff edge before my mind did. He looked directly at me. "Your father established a trust 8 months ago. The estate, including the house, business holdings, and all liquid assets, go entirely to his daughter." He paused. Brianna Keaton. My name sounded too loud in that room, like a slap. Celeste's head snapped up. "What?" The lawyer continued, steady as stone. "There are provisions for the boys. college funds that have already been distributed, but the bulk of the estate, approximately 4.7 million, goes to Brianna, along with full ownership of the company. The room erupted. Celeste was suddenly standing, voice sharp enough to draw blood. This is a mistake. He wasn't in his right mind. This is fraud. Trevor demanded documents. Dylan stared at me like I was holding a knife. And I sat there frozen, hands numb, because I didn't know how to hold something I'd been told my whole life I didn't deserve. The lawyer slid a sealed envelope across the table. Your father left this for you, he said quietly, to be opened privately. Celeste's eyes tracked the envelope like it was a weapon. And maybe it was. I waited until I was back in my hotel room, door locked, chain latched, like I was protecting evidence instead of paper. Inside was a letter in Dad's handwriting, and a USB drive. The letter was short. You were never the mistake I was. I let her make you feel unwanted in your own home. I let her poison your brothers against you. This doesn't fix what I did, but it's the only thing I have left to give. The USB contains everything you need. Trust no one, especially her. My hands shook as I plugged the USB into my laptop. Folders appeared, years of financial records, emails, video files. The first video was dated 6 months before Dad died. His face filled the screen, darker under the lamplight, eyes tired in a way I'd never seen. If you're watching this, he said, voice low, I'm already gone. He swallowed like the truth hurt to move. And you need to know what she did. I clicked the next file, and that's when I realized the inheritance was the least of it. Because the next video began at 2:47 a.m. and my father, my marathon-running, stubborn, proud father, looked afraid. I need to start from the beginning, he said, glancing off camera like he thought someone might be listening. Before I married her, before you were sent away, before everything fell apart. He took a breath. Your mother and I divorced when you were 3. You know that part. What you don't know is why. My throat tightened. I had an affair, he admitted. A stupid, selfish affair that destroyed my marriage to the only woman I ever truly loved. I felt my stomach turn, like the floor was shifting under the story I'd grown up with. Your mother found out when she was pregnant with you, he continued. She stayed until you were born. Tried to make it work for 3 more years. Then she couldn't. Dad's hands were clasped so tight his knuckles were white. I don't blame her. I blame myself. He paused, jaw clenching. I met Celeste 6 months after the divorce. She worked at the firm that handled our separation. She was attentive, sympathetic. She listened to all my regrets, how I wished I could fix things, how guilty I felt about you growing up in a broken home. His eyes flicked to the side again. And 2 years ago, I found out she orchestrated the entire thing. My skin went cold. The woman I cheated with, Colette, was Celeste's college roommate, Dad said. They planned it together. My laptop screen blurred. I realized I was crying, but silently, like my body didn't want to make noise in case Celeste could hear me from across the city, across the years. Dad kept talking, voice cracking in places he tried to hide. She saw me at a firm event, did her research, knew about your mother's family money, knew I was being groomed to take over the company, and she wanted in. He leaned closer to the camera. And Bree, that was only the beginning. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from my boyfriend, Ethan. You okay? Call me if you need me. I'm awake. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Marissa, had tried to worm her way back into his life recently, calling him foreclosure, like closure was a leash. Normally, that drama would have consumed my whole brain. Tonight, it barely registered. Because my father was on my screen at 2:47 a.m., confessing that the woman who raised me had built her life out of sabotage. And somewhere deep in my bones, a new fear began to take shape. Quiet, logical, horrifying. Dad hadn't just left me money. He'd left me a warning. And Celeste, she wasn't done. Not with the estate. Not with my brothers. Not with me. Not yet. The hotel room felt too small for what I'd just learned. It wasn't just that my father had cheated. It wasn't even that Celeste had engineered the affair like a chess move. It was the way the timeline rearranged my entire life. Like someone reached into my memories and changed the subtitles. Boarding school wasn't about structure. It was exile. The lonely holidays, the conditional checks, the way my brothers looked at me like I was a stain they didn't want on their suits. None of it had been accidental. It had been curated. I stared at the USB drive like it might bite me. Ethan texted again. Bree, please, just tell me you're alive. I typed back with shaking hands. I'm okay. Dad left videos. It's bad. I'll call tomorrow. I didn't mention the bigger thing, because I still didn't know if saying it out loud would make it real. She might have killed him. That thought moved through me like poison itself. Quiet, cold, spreading. I hit play again. Dad's video continued, his voice softer now, like confession had drained him. Colette was hired as a temp at my firm, he said. She pursued me aggressively. I was weak and stupid and flattered. The affair lasted 3 months. Your mother found photos. Photos Colette left deliberately in my briefcase. My stomach lurched. I could see it so clearly. Staged evidence, a trap with a bow on it. A marriage detonated, not by chance, but by design. After your mother left, Dad said, Celeste showed up at my door with a casserole. Said she'd heard through office gossip. She was just being a good colleague, a friend. He laughed once, bitterly. Within 6 months we were dating. Within a year engaged. He rubbed his face, exhausted. She moved fast. Got pregnant with your brother almost immediately after the wedding. Then pregnant again 14 months later. I thought of Trevor and Dylan as toddlers. Blonde and loud and adored. I thought of me, small and dark-haired, and already learning not to take up space. By the time I realized something was off, Dad continued, we had 2 kids, and she'd positioned herself as the perfect wife, PTA president, charity board member, the whole act. His eyes hardened. But she hated you, Bree, from the moment we got married. My throat tightened. When we were alone, he said, you reminded her I loved someone before her, that there was a time I belonged to another woman. He swallowed hard. She couldn't stand it. Boarding school, the criticism, the way she'd call me sensitive when I cried and dramatic when I got angry. Dad's voice cracked. I should have protected you. I pressed my palm to my mouth like that could hold my childhood in. I told myself you were resilient, he said. That distance was good for you, that she'd warm up eventually. A pause. I was wrong. Then his tone changed. Less emotional, more urgent, like the confession had turned into a briefing. She was stealing from me the entire time, he said. Small amounts at first. Business accounts, personal savings, investment portfolios. She has a gambling problem, Dad said. A serious one. I didn't find out until 18 months ago when a casino contacted me about a $340,000 line of credit she'd opened using our joint assets as collateral. I sat up straighter. My skin prickled. That explains so much. The sudden stinginess, the lectures about responsibility, the way Dad's generosity seemed to vanish right when I needed him most. I hired a forensic accountant, Dad continued. Quiet, private, someone she'd never know about. He held up a thick stack of papers. Turns out she'd been siphoning money for over a decade, sometimes $5,000 here, sometimes $50,000 there. She forged my signature on loans, took out credit cards in the company name, sold some of my mother's jewelry, and pocketed the cash. He looked into the camera like he was trying to reach through it and grab my shoulders. Total estimated theft over 15 years, $2.3 million, not including gambling losses. My mind tried to calculate, but it couldn't. Numbers that big stop being math and become gravity. No wonder I'd been told no when I asked for help with tuition. No wonder my checks came with conditions. It hadn't been about teaching me responsibility. It had been about covering holes she'd torn in the foundation. When I confronted her, Dad said, she didn't deny it. She laughed. He leaned closer. She said I owed her. For marrying down. For raising another woman's daughter. For giving me 2 sons who'd carry on the family name. I felt something hardening in my chest, like grief condensing into rage. She told me if I divorced her, Dad continued, she'd take me for everything I had left, and she'd make sure everyone knew I was a deadbeat father who abandoned you. I thought of Celeste's social circle, the judges, the attorneys, the women who smiled at charity galas and cut people apart over brunch. She wasn't just cruel. She was connected. And that's when I started planning, Dad said. The video cut to him in his office with folders spread across the desk, his voice steadier now, the voice of a man finally doing something he should have done years ago. I sold off assets quietly, restructured the business, set up the trust in your name only. I made it ironclad. She can't touch it. He exhaled. The boys got their college funds. That's it. Everything else is yours. My brain snagged on that, because I could already hear Trevor yelling, Dylan accusing me, Celeste calling me greedy. Dad's eyes sharpened. But here's what you really need to know. I leaned forward, heart pounding. 3 weeks before I died, Dad said, I told her I wanted a divorce. His mouth tightened. I told her I had evidence of the theft, that I'd go to the police if she didn't leave quietly. He glanced away like he was hearing it again. She said I'd regret it, that I wouldn't live to see the divorce finalized. The video cut off. My entire body went cold. The room was silent, except for the hum of the hotel air conditioner. I stared at the blank screen like it might start talking again on its own. My father had known. He'd known she might kill him, and he'd died anyway. I clicked another file, insurance investigation. It wasn't a video. It was a report from a private investigator, dated exactly 3 weeks before Dad's death. I read the summary once, then twice, then a third time, slower, like if I read carefully enough, the words would change into something less horrifying. Subject has made multiple internet searches on undetectable poisons, heart attack medications, and life insurance payout timelines. Subject observed meeting with an individual identified as Dr. Philip Chen, a physician who lost his medical license in 2019 for prescription fraud. Subject exchanged cash for unknown items. Recommend immediate action. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set the laptop on the bed to keep from dropping it. I clicked the next video. Dad again, only this time he looked terrified. If you're seeing this after my death and it's ruled natural causes, he said, breathing hard. It wasn't. His eyes darted like he expected a shadow behind him. Look at the autopsy report. Check my medical records. I had perfect heart health. I was running marathons. There's no history of heart disease in my family. He swallowed. She's going to kill me. I know it. I felt my throat close. Tears came hot and fast now, because fear on camera is different than fear in imagination. Fear on camera is proof. I've started documenting everything, Dad continued. What I eat, where I go, every pill I take. It's all in the spreadsheet labeled medical log on this drive. His voice broke. If something happens, you'll know. The video ended. I sat there in the dim hotel room, staring at the screen, and a memory rose up from nowhere. Celeste, years ago, standing behind Dad at a family dinner, refilling his wine glass too quickly. You're spoiling him, someone joked. Celeste smiled. I just take care of what's mine. At the time, it sounded like a wife being playful. Now it sounded like a threat. I found the medical log. It was meticulous. Every meal, every medication, every symptom, time-stamped. The entries stopped the morning he died. Final entry, 7:14 a.m. Took usual vitamins. Felt dizzy, heart racing. This isn't right. I opened the autopsy report. Cause of death, cardiac arrhythmia. Natural causes. No toxicology screen performed due to no suspicion of foul play. And then the line that made my stomach drop through the floor. Cremation authorized. He'd been cremated 2 days after his death. Celeste had pushed for it, I remembered. She'd cried in front of everyone, saying Dad wouldn't want people gawking at his body. The evidence was ash. My phone rang. The lawyer. Miss Keaton, he said, voice tight. I am sorry to call so late, but there's something else you should know. I gripped the phone. What? Your stepmother is contesting the will, he said. She's filed an emergency motion claiming your father was mentally incapacitated when he established the trust. Can she do that? My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. She can try, he said. The hearing is in 4 days. You'll need to be there. 4 days. I hung up and stared at the hotel curtains, suddenly convinced someone might be outside. Watching. Waiting. That's when I saw it. Another folder on the USB I hadn't opened yet. Its name made my blood run colder than the autopsy report. For when she tries to fight. Inside were emails. Between Celeste and her lawyer. Dated 6 months ago, before Dad even died. They discussed strategies for contesting his will, claiming diminished capacity, arguing undue influence. She'd been planning this while he was alive, while she was playing grieving wife, while she was smiling for photos, while she was picking out pearl earrings to wear to his funeral. One email made me physically gasp. Her lawyer wrote, "Don't worry, once he's gone, we'll have the daughter declared unfit. She's unstable, no relationship with the family, hasn't been involved in his life for years. The judge will give it all to you and the boys." Declared unfit. Unstable. It was Celeste's favorite word for me, unstable. Every time I cried, every time I protested, every time I dared to call out what she was doing. I closed the laptop and sat perfectly still, breathing shallow, like movement itself could trigger something. Ethan texted again, "I'm coming over." I stared at the message, and for a second, the comfort of him was a lifeline. Then my mind flashed to his ex-girlfriend Marissa, how she'd shown up at his gym last month, all smiles and accidental encounters, how she'd texted him late at night, how she'd made everything feel slightly watched. Ethan had shut it down, he'd told me, blocked her, changed his routine. But now, with Celeste's emails in my head, every coincidence felt sharper. I typed back, "Don't come, not tonight, I need to think." It was the first time I realized the most dangerous thing about Celeste wasn't her cruelty. It was her patience. She didn't just hate me. She planned around me. She planned for my collapse. And the hearing in 4 days wasn't just about money. It was about whether Celeste could take the last thing Dad ever did for me, his attempt at redemption, and turn it into another story where I was the mistake. I opened my laptop again, not to watch Dad's videos, to start building my own case. Because if Celeste was going to drag me into court and call me unstable, I was going to show everyone what unstable really looked like. And it wasn't me. It was the woman who'd been quietly draining accounts, forging signatures, and researching undetectable poisons while smiling at charity luncheons. 4 days. I wiped my face, straightened my posture, and did the only thing I'd ever learned to do when I was alone and scared. I worked. The courthouse looked smaller than I expected. I'd driven past it 1,000 times growing up. Stone steps, flags, the illusion of order. But walking inside felt like crossing a border. One where Celeste's rules no longer applied, where stories had to be backed by proof. She arrived 10 minutes late. On purpose. Black dress, pearls, sunglasses big enough to hide behind. The grieving widow costume, perfected. Trevor and Dylan walked in on either side of her, shoulders tense, eyes forward. They didn't look at me. I didn't blame them. If I'd grown up with Celeste whispering in my ear every day, I might have believed her too. My lawyer, Patricia Morales, leaned over and murmured, "Remember, let her perform. We're here to document." Patricia was calm in a way that made panic feel childish. Late 40s, sharp eyes, hair pulled back like she didn't have time for nonsense. She specialized in estate fraud. I'd found her at 3 a.m, Googling with bloodshot eyes and Dad's voice echoing in my head. She'd watched every video, read every email. Then she'd said something that changed everything. "This isn't just inheritance," she told me. "This is attempted murder." The judge was a woman in her 60s with a reputation for impatience. She adjusted her glasses and looked down at the file. "Mrs. Keaton," she said to Celeste, "you are contesting the validity of a trust established 8 months prior to Mr. Keaton's death, claiming diminished mental capacity." "Yes, Your Honor," Celeste's lawyer said smoothly. "Mr. Keaton was confused, emotionally unstable, and unduly influenced by his estranged daughter." Estranged. The word landed exactly where it was meant to, on me. Patricia stood. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady, "we are filing a counter-motion alleging long-term financial fraud, forgery, and theft committed by Mrs. Keaton against the deceased." The room exploded. Celeste actually laughed, short, sharp, incredulous. "That's absurd," her lawyer snapped. "This is a civil matter. And we are filing criminal complaints this afternoon," Patricia cut in. "But the fraud directly impacts Mrs. Keaton's standing. She cannot profit from crimes committed against the estate." The judge banged her gavel. "Order." She turned to Celeste, whose face had gone pale beneath the makeup. "Do you have proof?" the judge asked. Patricia held up a thumb drive. 16 years of bank records, forged signatures verified by a forensic analyst, emails discussing the theft, testimony from a forensic accountant. It's all documented. The judge didn't even hesitate. "This hearing is postponed pending review by the district attorney's office." Celeste didn't look at me when she stood, not once. But Trevor did. His face was different, confused, cracked open, like something he'd been told his whole life had just shattered. That night, my phone rang. "Trevor." We hadn't spoken directly in 6 years. "Is it true?" he asked. No greeting, no warmth. "Did Mom really steal from Dad?" "Yes." Silence stretched. "And the other thing?" he asked quietly, "about Dad's death." "I don't know for sure," I said. "But he thought she was going to kill him. He recorded videos." More silence. He was breathing hard now. "We didn't know," Trevor said finally. "Dylan and we thought you were just spoiled, that Dad gave you everything." I closed my eyes. I worked 3 jobs through college. I graduated with $47,000 in debt. "I saw the records," he said. "The tuition payments, the loans. Dad kept every receipt." I waited. "Did he love us?" Trevor asked. "Or was it all just her?" The question broke something open in my chest. "He loved you," I said. "He just didn't know how to stand up to her, and by the time he figured it out, it was too late." 2 weeks later, the news broke. Prominent socialite arrested in million-dollar theft scheme. They arrested Celeste at her tennis club, in front of everyone. Her mugshot hit the internet within hours. Perfect hair, hollow eyes, no pearls. The trial moved fast after that. The forensic accountant testified. The casino confirmed the debts. The emails were devastating. One read, "He's so stupid he doesn't even check the accounts. I took $75,000 last month and he didn't notice." Another, "Once the idiot dies, I'll have everything. The daughter gets nothing." Guilty on all counts. Celeste couldn't make bail. Her assets were frozen. The friends who'd surrounded her for decades suddenly had prior commitments. 3 months later, the DA reopened Dad's death investigation. They couldn't charge her with murder, not without a body, but they could charge her with conspiracy. The disgraced doctor broke under pressure, admitted he'd sold her liquid potassium chloride. The jury saw Dad's videos, heard the fear in his voice. They convicted her. At sentencing, the judge didn't soften a single word. "You manipulated a man for decades, she said. You stole from him. You terrorized his child. And when he tried to leave, you plotted his death. 12 years for fraud, 15 for conspiracy, 27 years total." Celeste was 54. She'd be an old woman before she ever saw daylight again. Trevor and Dylan testified against her. Afterward, we met at a coffee shop near the courthouse. Awkward, fragile, honest. "We're sorry," Dylan said. "We believed her." "That's not an excuse," Trevor added, "but it's the truth." "It's a start," I said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was real. 6 months after the sentencing, the estate finally cleared. No more appeals. No more motions filed in shaky handwriting by lawyers paid to delay the inevitable. No more headlines speculating whether Celeste Keaton would beat the odds. She didn't. I inherited everything: the house, the company, the money. And the first thing I did was sell the house. I didn't even tour it one last time. I couldn't walk through rooms where I'd learned to be quiet, learned to apologize for existing. A developer bought it and tore it down to build condos. Good. Some places deserved to disappear. The company was harder. Dad had built it from nothing. 60 employees who'd shown up every day to work for a man who, for all his flaws, had believed in building something real. I kept it running, hired a CEO to manage day-to-day operations, and set up a profit-sharing plan so no one would ever feel as disposable as I had. I paid off my student loans in one transaction. $47,000 erased with a single click. I cried, not because of the money, but because of the girl who'd worked until her feet bled, believing she was on her own. She shouldn't have been. I set up a scholarship fund at my old boarding school. Full tuition, living expenses, therapy covered. I named it the Every Kid Belongs Fund, because someone should have told me that. Trevor and Dylan and I started meeting once a month for coffee. It was strange at first. 3 adults learning each other without Celeste's script. We talked about neutral things: work, movies, weather. Then slowly the truth crept in. "I still hear her voice sometimes," Dylan admitted once, "telling me you were dramatic, that you were unstable." "I hear her telling me I should have controlled you better," Trevor said. "Like you were a problem to manage." I nodded. She trained us all. Healing didn't come with fireworks. It came with repetition. Showing up, saying the hard thing, sitting in silence without rushing to fill it. Celeste wrote me a letter from prison. I almost didn't open it. It wasn't an apology. It was an explanation. She wrote about growing up poor, about fear, about control, about how I reminded her she wasn't first, wasn't chosen, wasn't loved the way she wanted to be. She admitted she destroyed me to save herself. I burned the letter that night. Understanding isn't forgiveness. Some things don't get redeemed. 2 years after Dad's death, I went to visit my mother in Oregon. We sat on her back deck, overlooking the ocean, wind tangling our hair. "I failed you," she said quietly. "I was so angry at your father that I didn't see what she was doing to you." It was the apology I had waited for without knowing I needed. We rebuilt something that week. Not the past, but a future that didn't pretend. Before I left, she gave me a box of old photos. Her and Dad when they were young, happy, whole. "You came from something real," she said. "I keep those photos in my living room, a reminder that broken things start whole." While sorting Dad's files, I found plans he'd never shared. Affordable housing projects, mixed income developments, community spaces. He'd been trying to make amends quietly. I finished what he started. The first building opened 2 years later. 24 units, half market rate, half subsidized. We named it Second Chance. At the ribbon cutting, Trevor handled the business side. Dylan ran the marketing. We stood together, 3 siblings who'd grown up as strangers, learning how not to repeat what we were taught. Celeste requested a meeting 5 years into her sentence. I deleted the email. The healthiest version of me wanted nothing. Not closure, not confrontation. Nothing. That was freedom. Last month, I was at a park watching Trevor's daughter, my niece Clara, play on the swings. She scraped her knee. Trevor scooped her up immediately, kissed the injury, told her she was okay. "She's going to be fine," I said. "She will," he replied, "because I'll make sure of it." Cycles don't end with revenge. They end with choices. The foundation helps 30 families a year now, Therapy, legal support, job training. Every case feels like cracking a link in a chain that's been dragging families down for generations. I'm still in therapy, twice a week. Some days I still hear Celeste's voice, but it's quieter now, smaller. I live downtown in a modest condo. I still manage the foundation and the housing projects. I'm dating, carefully. I'm learning that love doesn't have to feel like survival. Trevor and Dylan and I have dinner once a month. Clara comes. Sometimes the pasta is burned. We laugh anyway. 7 years after my father died, I visited his grave on his birthday. I'm still angry at you, I told him, but I'm grateful you did one hard thing at the end. The wind moved through the trees. I forgive you, I said, not because he earned it, but because I was tired of carrying it. Trauma doesn't disappear. It scars. But scars mean you survived. Celeste spent 20 years calling me the mistake. I spent the rest of my life proving worth isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build. Choice by choice, kindness by kindness. I wasn't the mistake. I was the truth she couldn't erase. And I'm still here.